Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined by Mr. Daniel Yoo, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yoo, thank you as always for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, stocks in the U.S. got absolutely slammed on Thursday. The Dow falling by the most in history in terms of points. It was a decline of more than 4%. The coronavirus fear really starting to hit the markets now. What's the story, Mr. Yoo?
Yes. As you said, global equity market tumbled in the last 1 week period. If you look at the MSCI World Index ETF prices, it fell from the peak to now 11% in a very short period of time over 1 week. Clearly, this is putting a dent to most of the equity market, including U.S. If you look at the U.S. equity market, from the peak to bottom, the S&P is down about 12.2%. NASDAQ is down also over 12%. Clearly, this has been the biggest severe decline that we've seen. And if you look at the greed and fear index that we look at, we are in a panic mode, a so-called fear index, extreme fear level, which is now at around 13 level. So clearly the concern about the COVID-19 spreading to not just China, but other part of the region, including the U.S., has made a significant concern for the equity market. People are worried about the global recession and whether or not this coronavirus will have a long-term impact. Clearly, this is a panic period. However, though, if we look at the VIX index and various other measures that we look at, we are clearly in a panic selling territory. Technically, anytime soon we can see a rebound. So we shouldn't be too negative at this point in time, given the fact that the uncertainty has already priced into most of the equity market that we look at.
Well, Korean stocks sort of followed suit today. We're now down below 2,000 points. What happened today in the local market, and how bad is this going to get? Yes,
as you said, Kospi has fallen below 2,000 once again. If you look at from the 2018 bottom, we've seen it, this is the third time. Clearly, the decline of the prices has been quite severe. The peak recently was in January. It went up as high as 2,277. Now we are at 1987. So clearly more than almost 300 points decline. So if you calculate that, that is more than 13% decline from the peak to bottom. The main reason for this is that people are uncertain about the policies as well as the government stance on this. If we look at the Bank of Korea decision, they did not decide to lower interest rate, saying that whether or not interest rate cut is not going to help the consumption, which I'm not sure whether that is the right way of doing it. But nevertheless, obviously, much expected rate cut did not happen. So therefore, people were panicking. Now, if you look at just today, Kospi is down 3.3%. Kosdaq is down 4.3%. I think that most of these decline is already pricing in Korea's economic growth rate for this year to fall sharply from last year's about 2% to below 1.6%. Maybe the pricing in is already that is even lower than 1.6% at this point in time.
Well, meanwhile, the exchange rate, we're still at well over 1,200 won to the dollar. The Korean currency is weakened by several percent during this outbreak. Where do you see the won going?
Right. Once again, I think that the Bank of Korea deciding not to cut interest rate was one of the reasons why the exchange rates were falling so rapidly to the 12-15 level. So they were thinking that maybe foreign investors were selling rapidly because of the currency movement. But if you look at the commentary coming out from the overseas, it says that Korea unexpectedly holds the base rate, or Bank of Korea unexpectedly kept its base rate. This is the comments coming out from the overseas. Clearly, I think that we have lost some of the trust from the foreign investors, whether or not the proper policies will be made to contain this and also able to increase the GDP growth rate. We have seen a continuation of slowdown in the GDP growth rate, and we saw barely above 2% growth rate last year. And this year, if we're seeing another decline to 1.6%, clearly people are concerned about what will happen to the currencies. So even though we did not lower the interest rate, we saw a credibility issues occurred, and therefore, once again, the Korean won has depreciated today to 1215.7. Yesterday, it slightly appreciated to about 1213 level or so, but it seems that rate cut did not happen, doesn't really help out for the time being. Hopefully, we will see more aggressive measure coming from the government and more correlated efforts to boost the economy. And if that actually occurs, and we hope that will come through over the next few weeks, then we will see currency stabilizing around 1200 level. I think that intrinsically fair exchange rate should be well below 1200, but at this point in time, people are still uncertain about what's going to be the implication of the coronavirus.
Yes, indeed, and we'll have to keep a close eye on all of this throughout the outbreak as it develops. We'll have to leave it there for today, though. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.